Final Fantasy VII was one of those games that I always heard about. It's up there with Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time. People have always talked about its world, its characters, and how it came into their lives in their most formative years. So, when that announcement trailer dropped in 2015 at the Sony E3 press conference, remember when E3 was a thing? The trailer was at the top of YouTube trending. People lost their minds. As someone who had never experienced the original, I was excited to see what made it so special. 5 years later, and it's 2020, we've had Resident Evil 2, a game of similar renown being remade to great success. Remakes are becoming more and more common, so the big question is whether Square Enix can pull this off. Can that magic everyone describes be brought to the present, or will that luster be dulled and lost to time? The story and its characters are the most defining features of Final Fantasy VII. You saw Cloud appear in World of Final Fantasy to try and sell that game. He's in Smash Bros. To represent the entirety of the Final Fantasy series. But you saw none of the 7 characters as real-life supermodels like Lightning from 13. She's in real magazines. Final Fantasy VII Remake enjoys similar strengths that the legacy of the original game indulges in. I really like the cast of this game, even if I hate most of their personalities and dialogue. I care about this team and their dynamic. Cloud is the complete asshole that girls swoon over cause he's an asshole. Barrett, the always jump before looking, bombastic, annoying as hell father. Tifa, the overhyped, not even that pretty bartender. But more than that, I love the major side characters like Biggs, Wedge, and Jessie. Those 3 were my favorite, and their decreased involvement later on in the game made me miss them. The dialogue is this weird mix of hilarious and incredibly frustrating.
Cloud, leave him be. Rude's not a bad person, really.
No, I'm not bad. But like it or not, I sometimes have to do bad things.
It's an extension of the rest of the game, as I was consistently switching between facepalming and snickering. Where I start to really have a problem with this game is the story. The first 10-ish hours are what we've seen in the trailers and E3 footage. You're a group of eco-terrorists trying to take down a power company that is killing the planet by providing electricity to all of the citizens of Midgar. It's straightforward and simple, and weirdly very timely. You meet the team, get to know them, and the greater world that they live in. This is fine, but there are occasional storytelling devices that are used for moment-to-moment interactions that got on my nerves. I'm talking about the classic Japanese stylings of long pauses, communication by grunting.
So how do we get to the bridge above Mako storage?
There are some places a sword just can't reach.
And the characters taking their time to talk things out when time is of the essence. Like when the team plants a bomb and only has 20 minutes to escape before it blows up, but they decide to second-guess their actions in a lengthy cutscene. You've already placed the bomb, and it's on a timer. It's too late to go back. These type of problems are present throughout, but the overarching storyline starts to take a nosedive after that 10-ish hour mark. It's when you have to start dealing with Aerith. I hate her. Her personality and role in the story is passable, but I hate what she represents when it comes to this game. Once you meet her, you're stuck in a multi-hour-long block of monotonous gameplay and story. So much of what you do in this section of the game is useless. You have to deal with annoying kids. It's all bad. Once you finally get back on track, you get to visit new towns and the experience starts to even out. The most annoying narrative choices from this point on have to do with characters making bad decisions just to get the plot moving in the direction that the creatives wanted it to. Everything just slowly piled up for me and I became less and less invested in what was happening. I wondered if this really was the experience that many had been excited by. I'm not even talking about the original game. People love this remake, and they are swooning over it. When I approached the end of the game, things got interesting. The plot introduced more characters and more cool locations were revealed. The mystery that the game had been hinting at, something I didn't pick up on before, was finally front and center. I thought the game was going to end on a bang, making up for all of the frustrations that it had caused me. But it didn't. I feel like this game ends like Shenmue 3, asking the player to wait for the next installment. Most of this comes down to the fact that Final Fantasy VII Remake is shackled to the original. I don't mean in a cute metaphorical way, I'm speaking literally. Sephiroth knows the events of the original game, somehow, and is changing the timeline so that those events don't come to pass in the exact same way. Again, as someone who has never played the original game, this was completely lost on me because Sephiroth talks in code. The events being referenced, I have no context for. It is wholly reliant that I played the original to know what is going on here. This might be exciting for those who did play the original game, but as a newcomer, I didn't have the experience needed for the meta-textual narrative going on. Taking a break from the story insanity going on there, the other big area of change is the combat. This is something that I really enjoy 90% of the time. Playing as any of the characters is really enjoyable, as most of the attacks are satisfying, and it's fun to see the damage you're doing to enemies. Cloud uses his sword to do tons of damage, even having some default attacks that can hit multiple enemies in a small space. The liberal use of effects to punch up the combat keeps battles visually interesting. Barrett's gun arm allows for long-range battle, as he can sit in the back and chip away at enemies while unleashing medium-sized attacks when he is ready. The last key character, Tifa, is also a close-quarters fighter that has the ability to heal along with medium damage attacks. A key component of the system is all of the gear choices that you have to make for the characters. On your journey around Midgar, you will pick up or buy different pieces of gear for your characters to equip. Each item has its own stats and skill tree that can radically change how you use each of them. For example, Cloud can be a powerhouse when attacking, or can be more magic focused. It all comes down to how the player wants to use them in battle, but that means a lot of time spent in the menu looking at stats. The game does offer an automated system to apply skill points for you, but I liked making the choices myself. The area in which combat doesn't always work lands in two categories. The first is the AI that controls the characters in your party. So when you're playing as Cloud, Barrett and Tifa are off doing their own thing. For the most part, this works, but when it comes to Aerith, I get very angry. She is so slow to do anything, and it becomes a problem in more demanding fights. Her role as a healer is integral, so when she is slowly attacking enemies, it was really frustrating. She also has very little health. I tried to get her as much as possible, but I still had to keep an eye on her during every fight. The other area where combat runs into some issues is a compounded problem. Most fights take place in a little arena, an open space that allows for fights to happen in. These spaces can get large when dealing with boss fights. That's the first piece. The second piece is the inclusion of a running button, along with having your character be able to dodge. So when you combine these two together, you're in a big open arena for a boss battle. The boss is about to attack you. My first instinct is to roll away. The proliferation of Dark Souls-styled combat has taught me to roll away from danger to be able to counter attacks as quickly as possible. In this game, the bosses, more often than not, have attacks that cover a big space, so dodging away from the enemy is not good enough. You would have to run away from them instead. In doing so, you lose the small window of opportunity to fight back before they just do another move. Now you might be saying, well, why don't you just run away from the big attacks and roll for the others? My answer to you is, you can't tell which is which. There is no indication that the enemy's incoming attack is going to cover a large area or not. You just have to learn by getting hit by it. This is a constant struggle as bosses have different phases with attacks that you have never seen before. This might not be such a big problem if I had more faith in my healer Aerith, but she can be borderline useless, as I described it before. Other than these problems, the bosses themselves are creative and have cool designs. There are quite a few of them, and are mostly fun.
Whatever. Enough of this bullshit.
Let's just fight.
Hey, let him
Oh, you guys have some
sure.
animal? What the fuck?
Y'all are in for a world
So,
of hurt now.
that looks cute.
Hack him to bits, hear me?
Hack him to bits.
Leave the faces
What is
out.
this cute little guy
Shinra ain't
gonna do?
give us the bounty otherwise.
He's got a little knife. Oh my god. He's trying to stab Tifa. Oh my god. Look at this guy.
Special?
Look at him. Oh my god, he's He's the strongest enemy I've faced so far. Holy shit.
The last aspect of the game I want to talk about is the atmosphere, meaning visuals and music. Everyone always talks about the music of Final Fantasy, but I totally get it now. All of the tracks really work and help to elevate all the different moments and tones this game has. It can sometimes be playing too loudly in the background.
The guardian angel of the slums will collect your offering on behalf of the poor.
This must be one of her calling cards.
I don't see anything else interesting. Let's head back and tell him what we found.
But other than that occasional complaint, it's basically perfect. The visuals are less clean-cut, as the variation in presentation is a multifaceted conversation. I am no professional, so if you need an in-depth conversation about the look of this game, check out Digital Foundry, but I can offer you some casual insights about the experience. The first couple of hours of this game look stunning. The use of pre-rendered cutscenes enhanced my experience as the transition to gameplay was seamless. The areas felt ultra detailed as the textures had so much depth, and the lighting brought about this incredible mood. Then, just a couple hours later, everything changes. From then on, the game is distinctly more flat and less detailed, dropping in quality even more in some areas. While this change doesn't affect gameplay in any way, it does change how you feel about some of the less pretty environments. Overall though, I would say that it all still works really well together, but the change in quality was something that would be hard to miss. Final Fantasy VII Remake is a slightly above average game. If it would have followed this simple lesson.
Let's not get episodic, okay? Old timer? Beginning, middle, end. Facts, details, condense, plot, tell it.
Then I might have had a better time playing it. I was always excited to get into fights and groaned when I got back to the story. I honestly don't think it deserves all of the praise it's getting and reminds me of another Square Enix game. There was a similar reaction to Kingdom Hearts 3, a very bad video game that got a lot of praise from game media because it was nostalgic for them. It doesn't help that the two games share a lot of the same voice actors either. I think that's what's happening here on a broader scale. This isn't as inventive or transformative as Resident Evil 2 Remake was to the original game, and the story problems go beyond anything that Red Dead Redemption 2 encounters, or Control for that matter. Red Dead has solid characters who are the beating hearts of their experience, and Control has a world inherently more interesting and fleshed out. I really wish I could have loved Final Fantasy VII Remake, especially since I bought the deluxe edition. The deluxe edition was worth it for the art book and CD, but what am I gonna do with this stupid steelbook case?